It's a little bit like how this guy and his friends look down on so many people. They look down their nose on people like Irish Catholics like me and grew up in Scranton. They look down on people who don't have money. They look down on people who are of a different faith. They look down on people who are a different color.
He doesn't even know what he's talking about, and that guy is the President of the United States, yet he might have won the election. Unbelievable. But he is bringing up something that's happening in society, and it's called critical race theory. It's not new to the author of The Plot to Change America, How Identity Politics is Dividing the Land of the Free. He is Michael Gonzalez, and he writes he's a senior fellow at the Heritage Institute's Douglas and Sarah Allison Center for Foreign Policy. Mike, welcome.
Hi, it's so great to be on with you. How are you?
Good. Mike, first off, was Joe Biden describing critical race theory?
No, he was saying sensitivity training, and there is one thing that critical race theory is not, is sensitive. It is appalling. It tells kids that hard work or punctuality or love of the written word or the use of reason, rationality are right things. This is a form of child abuse. No one should be, especially non-white children, should hear these hateful disciplines, these hateful messages, that everything that leads to success in life is a product of the white race. This is, first of all, patently untrue, false, and the fact that it's being taught and being described by Biden and other politicians as sensitivity training is perplexing.
Because it's not. You said it started in this country in 1992, but it emanates really from 1937. This is Marxist.
This is old Marxist in origin. This begins, critical race theory, which is everywhere today, in the ballpark everywhere, begins with critical legal theory, which begins with critical theory. And critical theory, as you said, begins in a paper by the Frankfurt School director, Max Horkheimer. The paper is written in 1937, sometimes called the School's Manifesto. It was called Traditional and Critical Theory. And yes, as you said, it's Marxist. It's completely Marxist in origin. The Frankfurt School was going to be called the Institute for Marxism, and then they thought that they did not want to. It would be more prudent not to display the Marxism so openly. The Frankfurt School patented itself after the Marx Engels Institute in Moscow, and it was completely, what critical theory is a complete, ceaseless, unremitting attack on society, on all norms, on all traditions, in order to tear them down, which is what critical race theory does today, except it does it through the prism of race.
Right. And how is this different? We used to be a melting pot. I don't care where you're from, just move in the same direction. We're America. This is the opposite of the melting pot. This is the unmelting of the pot.
That's exactly the book that I wrote, how the plot to change America, because it is meant to change America, to transform America. Listen, we've had immigrants come in here since the 1670s, right? German immigrants, and then the Scots-Irish. Then we had a huge wave in the 1850s, and then another huge wave with Ellis Island. Nobody in their right mind, actually, some people did think it, but nobody in their right mind thought of taking the Sicilians and the East European Jews and the Poles and the Armenians and the Syrians and the Hungarians that were coming in and turning them into minorities that had a sense of victimhood and who deserved compensatory justice because the country had taken them in. Because that's suicidal. That's committing national suicide. And yet, this is what we're doing now with the new wave of immigrants. But we have to, obviously, if we're going to be a country that takes in immigrants, as we are, because we're such a bad country, right? We're such a racist country that there's a very long line of people out the door waiting to get in. So we have to stop doing this to ourselves. We have to stop reimagining the country as a confederacy of categories of the victims.
So, Mike, that's why we're getting a generation who wants to pull down our statues. That's why we're getting a generation who thinks we have to apologize for the country. That's why we get a series that critically acclaimed from the New York Times that says we're about slavery in 1619, not about freedom in 1776. Does that all play into this?
Of course. No, that is completely, all of this emanates from critical race theory. This very mendacious project by the New York Times, which it shows you what they want to do, because it's not just who cares what the readers of the New York Times read, right? But it is a curriculum that is now in 4,500 classrooms across the country, and they teach that everything is about race. Not everything is about race. Some things are about race. There are racists in this country, and in many, thank God that in many areas of life they cannot practice racism. There are statutes and laws that need to be enforced, but not everything is about racism. You know, we have relationships, we have conversations, we have friendships, we have, you know, people working teams at work that have nothing to do with race.
I would think so, unless you want to keep bringing it up into everything and being perpetually offended. But you also talk about celebrities in Hollywood and how they're being used or playing into this. In what way?
Well, they buy into this. One of the best things the left has done for itself is to take over the entertainment industry, the long march through the institutions. In fact, if you're not a leftist in Hollywood now, you either have to hide yourself or not, you know, tell anybody that you're a conservative. You know, we have the Friends of Abe group. I had lunch with them years ago in L.A., and everything was ultra secretive because they did not want their careers to be terminated. So a lot of people in the entertainment industry now see their job as indoctrinating people into these things, into the belief that we're institutionally, structurally, and systemically racist. And why is that? Because what they aim to do is to change our institutions, our structures, and all that. A system is just a fancy word for the way everything works. This is why I wrote my book. And the reason I call it The Plot to Change America is not because they have meetings in Madison or Cambridge, Massachusetts every Thursday night and people walk into basements. It's because all the people who promote this are singing from the same hymn, singing from the same theory. If you look at the schools of ed, teachers' colleges, the textbook that is used most is Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed. That is a work of critical theory.
So let me ask you, how do you, I see the problem, we see the results, how do we begin to change it?
Well, first of all, we start calling it out for what it is. We start exposing this. We start to say this is not a grassroots push for acclaim or recognition or respect. This is all enforced by the grass tops. This is enforced by ideologues, by activists, on people who don't want it. Right? And they want to do it for a reason. This is a part of a political project, but we start openly. We don't buy into their vocabulary anymore. We don't buy into their ideas. We're courageous and open about it. We write books about it, like The Plot to Change America. We go on radio interviews. But then you have to get the government out of the business of creating categories. Like the Hispanic category, the Asian American category, which was created by the Office of Management and Budget in 1977, because the ideologues and the activists and the leftists insisted on it and hounded the bureaucracy until they did it. They know what they're doing. So we need to call that out. And then we need to really look at our universities. Why are state legislatures paying for state colleges that are really madrasas that are teaching anti-American theory?
Yeah, and we got to do it state by state, is what you're saying. Mike, we're just scratching the surface. You wrote a lot of great stuff on this, very detailed, as well as your book, The Plot to Change America. We got to take this in. Have more people hating our history. Mike Gonzalez, thank you.
Thanks a lot for having me on.
You got to have you back.